Welcome to another edition of Minot Matters here at the Dakotan. Today, we're joined by Captain, but Interim-Chief, Dale Plessas. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me, Jonathan.
Absolutely. So, we have a lot of exciting topics to talk about today. But let's kick it off by, who are you? Okay, thrust into the spotlight. But you've been around the police department for a long time. What was the interest to originally, back in the day, get into the police force?
Yeah, so I've been around for a while. So people may not have seen me until recently, but I've been around for
over 20 years, right?
Yeah, 23 years with the Minot PD. I'm a graduate of Minot State. I actually from Montana, Western Montana originally, but I've been in Minot longer than I've been anywhere else. So,
wow.
So Minot is my home. I came here in 1994 to go to college and met my wife here, and we decided that this was our forever home, and the police department was hiring, so I got a job with the Minot PD in 2001, and I have been here ever since.
Was police, being part of the PD, something that was always part of the potential career path for you, or?
Yeah, so I was really following in my grandfather's footsteps. He was a police officer. If you go into my office today, you'll see his uniform sits behind me to remind me of him. I always admired the integrity he had. He was somebody I always looked up to, and I wanted to make him proud. I wanted to do what he did. So his uniform sits behind me in my office every day in a shadow box to remind me of that.
That's neat. At that time, because in recent news, there's this program that's being rolled out again between the police department and Minot State. At that time, was there such a program in place at all that you were able to utilize?
I came here to go into criminal justice. I was definitely going that route, but there was no program that like the one we have today that we're working on today. Anyways, this is kind of a new thing. I don't really know of anywhere else that has a program like this, so I'm really excited about the program we're setting up. But no, that wasn't there then.
Absolutely. I'm excited about the program and being able to talk about that as well. So when you join, and I know right now we're just talking about the role, we're going to get into some good things, but when you join the police department, or when you make that decision, what's the training like?
It's intense at first, and I think that's one of the scary things for new officers, because it's a lot of unknown. When you start at the police department, it's not like any other job. When you start at the police department, it really is a career, because you're going in and you're having to learn such a variety of things,
right? And
you're also at that same time being held or being I don't want to say monitored, but they're also grading you the entire time, making sure that you're learning what you need to do and that you can actually perform the duties that you need to be able to perform. So it's just kind of a scary thing to start as a police officer.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like it. Is there any moments that stand out from you way back then?
I can tell you, so the FTO program, so you start off with an in-house training, and the in-house training is to teach you all the city ordinances, all the state laws, all the policies of the police department, teach you some of the tactics that you're supposed to use in different situations, and de-escalation and all that kind of stuff. All that stuff happens before you even hit the road. But then once you jump into FTO, field training, you have an officer who is responsible for you, and they need to teach you all the day-to-day things that you need to do. That's when it becomes fairly intense, and that's what stands out to me is remembering. I had some really great FTO officers, some really great and it's amazing to me how important having good trainers is, because they really did guide the future of what I do.
As you have worked in the police department, you've been in there for, you mentioned, over 23 years. I'm sure the role of the police department when you got into it and what that role means to you now probably has changed a little bit. I'm sure there's some core things that have stayed the same, but there's also been some aspects of it that's changed. Now, in your position, Interim-Chief, what is the role of the police department in a community like Minot?
Well, I don't know that necessarily the role. So the way I see the role of the police department is to improve the lives of the citizens of Minot. Right. That's our main goal. And how we do that, I mean, maintaining public safety is how we do that.
Yeah.
But really what really matters is the perception of that our public has of public safety. That if they feel like they're living in a safe community, their quality of life is much better, right? So it's not just enough for us to make the decision that we have to do a really good job. We also have to let our public know, the people who pay our bills know that we're doing that, that they're actually living in a safe community. And that's why we talked about it last night at the
neighborhood meeting.
Yep, in the neighborhood meetings, we talked about the community survey. And to me, that's the most important tool we have, because that doesn't only tell us what we're doing. And we could look at statistics of what we're doing and how our officers are performing. But what really matters is what the public thinks of how our officers are performing. Because if their quality of life isn't being affected by what we're doing, then we're not doing anything.
So when you look at the statistics that are brought up in that meeting, basically, in basic terms, people feel safe during the day. At night, they don't feel as safe.
Yeah, we got really great marks for during the day, but at night, we're not where we need to be at night.
Does the perception of how people feel, is that backed by the statistics that you guys see in your calls and all, or however you would track statistics for that?
So I can say, when you look long term, I mean, Minot's a different place than it was 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
In recent years, not necessarily a ton more crime, but if you look at what really has changed is the perceptions that people have, their knowledge of what's going on, social media, all that stuff plays a big part into it. So yeah, I mean, I think if they're not feeling safe, then there's a problem that we have to address. And right now, what it looks like we're doing really well during the daytime. They're feeling safe walking in their neighborhoods during the day and commercial areas during the day. But at night, we're getting lower marks.
Right, and
it's not satisfactory.
What's interesting to me about it is, I mean, last summer I went on this venture, and because of a friend, and I ran a mile a day average for the entire month of August, and that was a brutal month. But some days I would be running at night, and I would be listening to stuff which was stories that were scary stories. You know, as you're running at night, it creates an environment where you're not comfortable. Mm-hmm. And the place where our office is at night is not very well lit. You go out of it, you're not comfortable. But the reason why I'm not comfortable is not because I'm scared of crime in Minot. It's because that I'm overall, as a world, through social media, there's this idea that crime is, that you should be worried, that you should be concerned at night. Does that affect, is that a perception that you're having to fight, that perhaps it's a battle that may be difficult to win?
Yeah, and I do think that, I mean, so to that respect, we've realized that as well. I mean, we've realized that social media does have a large impact on the way people feel. That's why we created the public safety public information officer position, community outreach position. The whole point to that is because that's part of serving the community, right? How they feel about safety, and trying to affect that, and also keeping them better informed and having more outreach opportunities and better connected. It's all part of that mentality that we have to have, that it's not only about keeping them communities safe, but it's also about making sure they feel safe. Yeah,
that's huge. We may go back to that subject, but obviously recently you were placed into the position of Interim-Chief. In some ways it was maybe expected, in other ways it was a little bit unexpected. But for you personally, why were you willing to serve in this position? This is a big deal for the police department and for the city of Minot. Why were you willing to do this?
Well, so Minot's my home. It's going to be my home. It's my forever home, like I said before. The police department is also my home. I have worked 23 years, going on 24 years. So that's my home. It's where and I care a lot about that place. So I feel an obligation to make sure I take care of it the best I can. So that's probably the best answer I can give, is I wanted to be there for my department in whatever respect I could.
No, I think that's huge. I think as a citizen, when you, and when you have someone in a position wherever it is in the city, and you know that's not just a job to them, and it's not just a career to them, but it's something that they care about and that they're passionate about. I feel like that makes a huge impact on a citizen's life.
Well, and the people I work with, the officers I work with, and the staff that I work with, they're part of that family for me, and I care about what happens to them too.
That's what's really unique about the police department is that there is a family there. There's this tight-knit connection there. How does that form? Why does that form?
I think you can find that in any line of work, but more so in law enforcement because of the nature of what they're doing. When you're having to deal with, and sometimes it's very, very horrific things. You're
right.
As a police officer, and I can say this for every police officer who works at the police department for any period of time, they're going to see some of the worst things that people can see. They're going to see death in every form at some point throughout their career, and going through that with others is how you get through those kind of things, right? And that becomes your family. It really, but I truly believe that becomes just as much part of your family as your actual family is.
Yeah, absolutely. So over the past couple of years, the police department has been through a few things, and feels like the last few months it's picked up steam. But it feels like, and it appears that we have reached the end of those things, and are ready to kind of chart a new course. And so now that you're interim chief, you kind of hold the reins to this a little bit. What does a new course look like for the Minot PD?
Well, so. There's a lot of things that we're doing at the police department because it is a matter of charting a new course, and I think we'll talk about wellness here. So you were going to ask that, but I'll start in some of the changes we're making at the department. Right. I created after the investigative report came out and after the CPSM study. There were several recommendations that were made of the police department. And what was important to me was that it wasn't a top-down, hey, this is what we're doing to change. It had to be more organic, and it had to be bottom-up decision. So we created a working group. I called the CPSM study and investigative report working group. And their job is to, as officers of the police department, members of the police department from all parts of the department, from investigations to patrol to records division, they get together and they go over the recommendations of these reports, and their job is to find ways to implement it. There's a lot of logistics that come along with implementing these, and I don't think. I mean, it's easy to make a recommendation, but making it actually work, making it stick, and prioritizing those, that's an important task. Yeah. So the CPSM and investigative report working group, they're working to make changes and lasting changes, recommendations on these changes, and we're moving forward with that. It's a total of let me count them out here. 5 working groups that we created.
Wow.
So we created a temporary space usage working group. As you know, the city hall vacated. One of the things that we need to do to move forward is ensure that we're utilizing the space that we have available to us for our officers during the time while the city makes decisions on what the best course of action is for the police department. So I tasked a working group to start looking into that. Okay. So that's one of the working groups. We have a budget working group. That's something that we've always tried to do at the police department, and it's been a difficult task, is getting our officers more involved in budgeting process. Well, it seemed like a great opportunity to do that. So we created a budgeting working group. So they're going through the budget and trying to prioritize for me because I need help with this, right? Yeah. I needed somebody to tell me what our priorities are. Yeah. There's not an unlimited checkbook, and we only get what we get. So we need to know what our priorities are. How are we going to spend the money the community gives us in the best way possible for the department and for the community? Yep. So they're working on prioritizing budget requests and prioritizing some of the things that we already have in the budget so that we can make a determination of what the best route forward is. A policy working group. There's a lot of policies that need to be addressed. Policy is a continuously changing process. And I can tell you every chief that I've worked for has had a lot of difficulty in maintaining policies that are actually that are right for the actual department, and so this is a way that our officers from the ground up can contribute to making those decisions on how we're moving forward in terms of policy. And then, of course, the last one is recruitment and retention committee, and that's a big one. Obviously, we're down 15, 16, 17 officers at a time. It's been like a roller coaster, and we need to find ways to address that. So we have a working group that's doing some really great things, and so that one of the great things that I talked about, or we talked a little bit, we touched about, is the Minot State partnership. So
the lack of staffing or the difficulty in retaining staff, this is not a recent problem. From my understanding, this is something that has gone back years, correct?
Many years, yeah. So, and it's easy to think that it's a new problem because it's become so public, but no, this has been something that's been a long time in the workings, and honestly, it creates more problems. I mean, obviously, if you're working in a job where you're overworked and you're understaffed, the engine gets hot, and that's where we're at right now. The engine's hot, and we have to find ways to cool that engine. One of the ways to cool that engine is recruit and to retain the people we have, right? Mm-hmm. But we have to find other things too. We have to do things to address it right now as well.
Right. Yeah. One of the questions I had on my list was specifically that: what kind of stress is when you're down like 15 people, you're 3 to 5 people, and how many people are in the police department?
So sworn officers, we have 85. We're allotted 85 sworn officers.
I see. Okay. So there's a lot of people. But when you think about, being down 5 to 7 people, it's like, okay, manageable, right? But 15, that's a substantial percentage of your department that you're down.
Absolutely.
What kind of stresses does this put? Is this working 60 hours a week type stuff, or you're taking time from family events and things like? What kind of stress is this?
It definitely. So if you think about it, I mean, when you want to take a day off, we have minimums. Our road minimum that we have to have on the road to make sure that we maintain safety for the public, right? You can't go below those,
right?
And so when you have those minimums, you may not get a day off that you need off, right? Mm-hmm. So it creates stress on our officers. You're going from call to call rather than getting breaks in between and being proactive. Like a lot of people get into law enforcement because they want. It's exciting, right?
Yeah.
But what they're seeing is going call to call to call and not getting the opportunity to do the things that they got into law enforcement for. So we need to find ways that we can relieve that kind of stress.
Yeah, because it goes hand in hand with health and wellness.
Absolutely,
sadly. Does. I mean, it makes sense, and the reason I say sadly is because that's a priority that you guys have, but then there's the priority of hiring, and they play together in order to help each other out. It's difficult.
Yeah, and so some of the things that we came up with, I mean, the community service officer model, it's not a new model, but what we're looking at is ways to actually take the press off the officers now, today, rather than 15 years from now when things get better. We can't have the mentality that it's going to change.
Right.
So we got to learn ways to do more with less, and we've already done quite a bit of that. So for some reason, we're able to hire civilians. Civilians want to come work for us, right?
Interesting.
And so what we're looking at is ways to hire civilians in positions that can take press off of sworn officers today, not tomorrow. So if we can hire, and for example, part of the working group's recommendation on the Minot State partnership was to have 4 community service officer positions where it's part-time positions. These community service officers are going to school, getting their education to become a full-time police officer. It'll take them about 2 years. During that time, they can work as community service officers. Wow. They're getting experience in the community, doing a lot of the same duties that they would do. But what's nice about the community service officer, they can take the press off of police officers. There's a lot of things civilians can do to take the press off of the sworn officers. For example, an accident on average takes about an hour for a police officer to write the report. The accident itself won't take that long. They'll and I'm not talking injuries. I'm talking just your everyday accident, right? So they will get the parties moved on fairly quick, and then they start the investigative report, which takes them a lot of time. wouldn't it be nice to have a civilian who could do those?
Right.
And then the officer can be on the road doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about taking away police officers from emergencies. That's not what I'm looking at. But what I'm looking at is finding ways where civilians can fill in and take off the press off of some of these other things that
That's
they
huge.
do. The auxiliary functions,
Probably something that'd help if people would just pay their parking tickets. I say that because, believe it or not, I once had a warrant out for my arrest.
Was that right, for parking tickets?
I had a warrant out, yes, for parking tickets. We were helping out somebody and watching their kids, and the police were involved or whatever. And so they did a quick background check on me, and they're like, thankfully I wasn't there. My wife was the only one that was there, and they're like, it was Friday afternoon, and they're like, your husband has a warrant out for his arrest. We're not going to do anything. It looks like it's whatever. It's not that perhaps big of a deal, but it's something that needs to be resolved because the process will happen if he's caught. So that Monday, I went before the judge, and we got that resolved. But interesting things. So staffing issue, it sounds like you guys have a plan there. It feels like a lot of the things, so I have staffing, I have facilities, I have health and wellness and recruitment, but it feels like those four things work together. Do you agree with that? If we had a state of the art, just money aside, city council's not listening right now. We had, $200 million facility, which I say a number that's so exorbitant, it's not going to be realistic for Minot. Does that affect recruitment at all?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think about where you work. I mean, you want to work in a nice facility. You want to work somewhere nice. And our police officers do too. So recruiting people and maintaining them, they want to have facilities. That is definitely something that they look at in terms of, do I want to go to this department or do I want to go to Bismarck or Grand Forks?
I see. Yeah.
So facilities do matter. They definitely do.
Right.
I mean, we got to find the right mix for the community too. And I get that. I mean, obviously, if there was no financial implications, we should have the best of the best.
Right.
But I mean, I would love nothing more than to have a really nice place for people to work,
When you look at a facility, and not in terms of, so like the difficult about this conversation with facilities is that there is a price tag. Everything that's mentioned, there's a price tag tied to. Yeah. And when you get into that, there's a whole nother conversation that begins. And that part of the conversation, I just want to do my best to avoid because it's completely different. What are the priorities of a well-tuned facility for the Minot PD? What would be some of those priorities? And I think you have a working group that is probably trying to figure that out a little bit. So you might be speaking a little bit off the cuff, but
and I can definitely address a lot of our priorities. And one is functionality. Right now we're split up in so many different ways. Our evidence room is split into 3 different areas, which really takes away from the function of the evidence officers. I mean, they have a lot more process and work than they should have right now. And our patrol functions, our patrol areas are all over the building, from one spot to the next. So what would be nice is if we had a better flow of the department, if it flowed better. Wellness areas. We're talking about workout rooms. Gotcha. And I mean, there's so many exciting things going on in the wellness program right now that we have, but we need space for that. So we need to figure out how to get that taken care of. Having space for our equipment. One of the big problems we have right now is storing our special operations equipment and finding a location where we can store that, where we can maintain the important equipment in temperature control location, but at the same time leave space for training for the officers who are involved with that equipment. So those are our priorities. To some extent, the current building right now, there are limitations that it just has because of the way it was built. I mean, it was not built for a police department only. Right. It was a city hall. I mean, it was over the years changed through many different renovations, but but it's got 5 or 6 different level changes in it,
Oh, wow.
and which
Gotcha.
limits you on space and what you can do with that space. So.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that you mentioned at a recent neighborhood meeting was that you, through studies and research that has found that video games sometimes helps relieve stress. So you, in this new facility, you definitely need a room for video games and all that, right?
And honestly, that came from wellness. It was Minot State had a resiliency,
Okay.
and they invited me to speak at it, and I had the opportunity to talk, and I haven't had a chance to ask her, so I'm not going to throw her name out there right now. But one of the PhDs of the psychology department came over, or actually contacted me afterwards,
Okay.
and told me about some really great research on how video games can actually be used to as a means to prevent some of these traumatic events that our officers see, to prevent that from affecting them the same. And I tell you what, it's really exciting to hear this. I mean, it's a multifaceted wellness program, and to me, these are things that we could implement easily. Having video games available to officers after traumatic events is not something that would be difficult to do. So if we can do it, we should do it.
Sounds like, and I'm not a PhD, and I have not specialized in this, but it sounds like part of it is just finding quality ways to where you're actually able to relieve stress.
Yeah.
Rather than carrying that with you, because the stress, I can only imagine what the stress is on a normal shift.
Yeah. Yep.
There's got to be a certain level of stress that you guys go through just every day, maybe even without realizing it, let alone on a shift where you have some very high impact calls, however you guys categorize those. It's got to be crazy, just this everyday stress you guys go with.
Absolutely. So and we might as well get into the wellness program now, because I mean, obviously wellness has been an issue for the department for years now, with some of the events, some of the officer suicides.
Yep.
This isn't something that we just started. But it has become apparent to me that we haven't done a good job of letting the public know what we're doing. So it's important for me to talk about the wellness program. Yeah. So a few years back, we started really diving into wellness and what it took. And what we realized is that it has to be multifaceted. It can't be just one thing or the other. It definitely has to have a peer support element, and the peer support element is not just saying, "Hey, you're a peer support member. You go and help that person if he needs it." It has to be trained officers who are in a program that is rigorously they're rigorously trained, and they function with rules. Like, for example, if you're on the peer support team, we can't have a situation where you're telling others what you talked about with the peer that you're dealing with. It just has to be confidentiality, those kind of things, right? So we created a peer support team that we have a peer support, or well, I should say we have a wellness coordinator who runs this peer support team. We've had professionals come in and train these peer support members, and we did a very good job of vetting the officers we chose for this program, because they have to have the willingness to do it, or the want to do it, but they also have to have the right personality to do this kind of thing, right? And so these peer support members work as a team to support other peers. Anytime there's a major incident that occurs, it's an automatic. There are certain triggering events that they know that they need to go out and check in with the officers and make sure they're okay. Mm-hmm. And it's a over time thing. They actually have a process where they let each other know, "Hey, I'm going to do this check-in. I'm going to take care of this officer here," just so you know. They don't need to say what was done, but they need to let them know that, hey, it's being done. Family support. We were lucky that we had some really good family members reach out and say, "Hey, I'd like to be on a family support team." So now we're working on putting that together. Family support, peer, similar to the peer support, where they're professionally trained and they'll actually have the ability to communicate with our peer support members and actually work and function in much the same manner. We have semi-annual required check-ins with actually trained professionals. So what I mean by that is twice a year we have trained professionals come to the police department, and it's mandatory for every member of the police department to check in with these professionals. And we're not looking for fitness of duty. What we're looking for, we're looking to give them an opportunity to talk to a professional if they need to. And what we're concerned about is there's a certain bit of machoism in law enforcement historically, right?
Yep.
Where people don't want to talk.
Right.
And so we made it mandatory so that takes that away.
Okay.
Nobody needs to know you're talking to them.
Yeah.
You can go in there and not have any conversation if you want. You don't have to talk. There's no requirement to talk. You have to show up.
Right.
And so that's a semi-annual. We're making it a requirement. We have critical incident debriefs after major incidents. Anytime there's a major incident, there's going to be a critical incident debrief with trained officers who are responsible for getting a group of officers who were involved in that incident together and talking it through. In the past, what we've always done is we've used clinicians or we've used clergy members or for confidentiality purposes, maintain confidentiality. But the important thing is to give people the opportunity to talk that out early on, right, so that it doesn't manifest in other ways. Some of the other things we're doing, we're working on developing local clinicians who are culturally competent. And what I mean by that is they are people who want to work with police officers and can understand police officers, and they'll be vetted to ensure that they're the right fit for working in law enforcement. Because if you think about it, as a police officer, if I show up to a clinician wearing my sidearm, some may not like that, right? And it may not be okay with them. Well, we need to know that before our officers go in there, right? So that they feel comfortable, because maybe they don't feel comfortable going in without a sidearm.
Yep.
So my point is just to have them pre-vetted. So we're working on that list right now.
Very good. Very good. It sounds like there's an actual game plan. And you mentioned that at the beginning of it, like this is not something that's been ignored recently or for years. This is something that's always been a focus.
And there's a lot more to it than that. And I say multifaceted. We have an app, a Cortical app, where officers, if they need to reach out to somebody now, they can go and reach out to somebody who's completely outside of the police department, but who is a law enforcement officer somewhere.
Yep.
And talk to them.
That's neat.
So it's not just our department, it gives them the opportunity to, because there's the confidentiality. Even though we have that, sometimes you want to talk to somebody outside just so you know you're safe, right? So we want to make sure they have that route.
Right. For sure. Very interesting there. So with the health and wellness, you guys have a program that you guys are implementing. Beyond that, you guys are looking at facilities, trying to make sure that there's, they're able to go and work out at the one thing that's neat, and I was going to mention this earlier while we were on facilities, but it goes to the other, and I understand, and it was pointed out very specifically at the recent neighborhood meeting, but the fires operates completely different than the police department, not trying to cross those two. Both first responders, so sometimes they probably get lumped into the same thing, but let's be clear, there's an annual game where it's right. Isn't there like a hockey game or something? So it's definitely fire versus police here. Yeah. But one thing that's neat about their concept, because of the shifts that they do, is their fire stations are a home.
Yes.
And that's something that it feels like right now isn't implemented very well at the police department, not because of lack of desire, but it's because of how the facility works. Where if you had more of that home where you're able to go work out somewhere, where you're able to go play video games, where it's actually someplace you can relax and chill, maybe that would have an impact on this health and wellness, along with the programs that you guys have in place to help with it.
Absolutely. Facilities are very important. And just to be clear, I'm very cognizant that there are limitations to us. Unfortunately, there are. So we have to do what's right for the community, but also right for our officers. Right. So we have to address that. And I know the city council is working on that. It's a process. So it's not something that's instantaneous, which is why I set up the temporary space usage, because from my perspective, I really want to make sure we're utilizing our space that we have currently the best that we can for the time being, because the facilities, that's no matter what the best case scenario, that's years down the road, right?
Yeah, right. Yep. Best case scenario.
And we need to make sure we address what we can right now for our officers. So that space usage, that temporary space usage, just needs to be done right now.
I have two more topics I want to talk about, but before we jump to those, 2.5. Before we jump to those, I want to do a rapid fire question round. Okay. All these are trick questions. Just kidding. None of them are trick questions. Okay. Great. But we're going to find out more about Captain. What are we supposed to call you? I should have asked this before we jumped on.
You can call me Captain Plessas. I'm interim chief, but I'm captain.
Okay. So coffee or energy drinks?
Oh, coffee.
Coffee.
Over and over and over every day.
Okay. Early riser or night owl?
Night owl.
Night owl. Me too. Well, actually, I used to be, but now I don't know what I am anymore. Do you patrol? This is going to probably harken back a few years, but patrol or paperwork?
Oh, patrol.
No questions asked.
No.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs. I have 3 of them.
Very cool. Very cool. Favorite off-duty activity?
Favorite off-duty activity. I've got a lot of favorite off-duty activities, but I guess I'd probably say going to the lake would be my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. Good family time and also relaxation.
Yep.
Most underrated skill a police officer should have?
I don't know if it's underrated, but being able to talk to people,
Gotcha.
being able to connect, because if you can't connect, you're going to have to find other ways of dealing with problems, which is not, I mean, you want people to connect. So
Yeah. Books or podcasts?
Books.
Books. Okay. Then favorite leadership book or quote?
Jocko Willink would be my favorite. And to think of one quote, I don't know that I could.
Okay. No, that's fair. That's fair. Summer or winter in Minot?
Probably summer. Yeah.
So, and this is not part of rapid fire, but probably winter's almost a mess for you guys. There's probably way more accidents.
Work-wise, winter is a mess for us. It makes it much more difficult. I mean, I like to ski and stuff like that. I like some of the winter sports, so
Right.
it's not as easy as that. But I mean, work-wise, definitely summer.
Yeah. Makes sense. You probably know Minot almost better than anyone. So what's a hidden gem in Minot? Whether that's a view, whether that's a local establishment that maybe gets overlooked, or what's a hidden gem in Minot?
A hidden gem. I think there's a ton of hidden gems. The Scandinavian Heritage Park would be definitely a hidden gem. I love to go there and walk around. The fairgrounds, the fair. I know it's not really hidden. I think everybody knows about that.
But you are right with the Scandinavian Heritage Center. That's something that people kind of, I think, overlook.
Yeah.
Like it's just there. It's on the corner of Broadway there, and just keep on going. But interesting. Last one. How would you describe Minot in one word?
One word. Let me think. Here.
That's hard.
Let me think of one good word.
Stumped him. I waited till the last.
You did. You stumped me. You didn't stump me. I'm just trying to
words.
figure out a way to say it. I mean, I have obviously a very, very fond connection to Minot. So I'm trying to find a way to say. I mean, it home. I guess would be the best word. If it was one word, it'd be home.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. There's something about it. You go, you leave, you go to the big cities, the big adventures, but Minot just always pulls you back.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, I always want to come home whenever I travel. This is always I want to get back. You know,
Right.
So it's
very
always
good.
as much as the trip.
you're
Getting
right.
home is fun.
There's excitement to go on the trip, and then about a day, and you're like, all right, when's this over? When do we get to be home? All right, let's work on wrapping this up. We kind of already talked about this. But with crime, we talked about social media's effect and all that. But how do you fix this perception? How is Minot a safe place? As you see statistics, we see news headlines, we see shooting happened at whatever, or blah blah blah, and we're like, oh, this is Minot, and bad stuff's happened in Minot now, and that's our reaction as the public. But you see actual statistics like this is like 1% of the time this happens, guys.
Yep.
How safe is Minot?
Minot's a safe community, very safe community. You look at it compared to the national, it's a very safe community, and that's the point, is that we need to make sure our public knows that.
Yeah,
we need to make sure that they feel that.
Absolutely. You've been in the police department for since 2001, for over 23 years. Because we've grown so dramatically, well, maybe not dramatically, but we have grown substantially in that time, there has to be a rise. But is crime truly on the rise in Minot, or is it pretty stable, growing at an anticipated pace?
Crime's on the rise nationwide.
Yeah.
Minot is no different, but I will say this: if you look at where we are compared to the nation, or even compared to just the average in North Dakota, we're doing good.
We're doing good.
Yeah, I mean, there are things like fentanyl, which plays a huge part
Right.
in crime. And unfortunately, that's an epidemic right now.
Right.
And we're dealing with just as much as anybody. So, I mean, when that epidemic really hit us, it hit us fast and hard.
Yeah.
We had overdoses that we had never seen before.
That's crazy.
And we didn't, I mean, it was a surprise, but it was a nationwide surprise, but it was still something that we were dealing with in our neighborhoods, in our town, and we had to deal with it now. So I'm happy to report there are things that we're doing that are reducing the deaths from that, but the problem is that those are Band-Aids. We got to find long-term solutions.
And that's one of the weird things about, well, every career has it, but massive adaptation that you guys have to do. Whatever it might be, it's fentanyl this 5 years, but in the next 5 years, it could be something completely different.
Absolutely.
I mean, back in the day, it was, and I know that it's still illegal, but it was marijuana. But you don't, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like, okay, maybe we should legalize marijuana.
Yeah.
Fentanyl is the problem now. It's just constantly changing. That's got to be difficult for you guys. Very good. How can the community of Minot support the police department?
Well, I can tell you the blue light that they did in February was huge. Our officers really felt that. The thing that I like to say about Minot is the community has always been very supportive of law enforcement, and we've always felt that support. For example, it's not a month goes by, not a week goes by where somebody isn't bringing in donuts or something to the police department to show support for us. If there's ever a major event, it's a flood of stuff coming in because people want to show us. So the biggest thing is just to make sure your officers know, if you see them out and just say, hey, I support you.
Gotcha.
I mean, I really do think our people feel it in Minot.
Don't be afraid of the police.
Don't be afraid to go and say hi. And
that's if you're me and have
show
parking tickets. But yeah, shake the hand or whatever.
Yeah.
You guys aren't too busy or whatever. Pull over to the side of the road when the lights are on, though.
Yeah. Pull over. Please pull over.
Yeah, it's funny. You see those memes sometimes. People like don't know when to pull over. But the other thing is for funeral processions, we're so busy now. We don't want to pull over for a 20-minute, 10-minute, 5-minute funeral procession. But no, you still should.
You still need to.
But it's not only you need to. It also shows respect for what you guys are doing.
Absolutely, it does.
That's the bigger point that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even on social media, be kind. Cops are reading those too, and remember, there's all kinds of perspectives when we get that, and everybody has a right to it, but just be kind.
Is there a favorite donut or food or restaurant when people are dropping stuff off that, really stands out a little bit?
I think my wife would murder me if I started requesting.
Okay, that's fair. Maybe that's an unfair question. I'm sorry.
I better not.
But, I like spicy pie pizza, so,
Oh, yeah. There's plenty of them I can list off that I like, yeah.
Yeah, very good. Well, I really do appreciate you coming on. Typically when we do this, we give the person we're interviewing the last word or a last chance at a word. So is there anything that you want to leave us with?
No, thanks for giving me the opportunity to come in and talk. What was important to me is, and I told you this before, I do not like getting in front of cameras. As a matter of fact, when I'm in front of a camera, I want out of being in front of the camera the entire time. But the reason I did it is because I feel like it's important to make sure we get the message out that we're doing a lot of great things at the police department, and we have a lot of great initiatives that are moving forward, and I'm excited about our future. We do have a great future. So absolutely, really appreciate that. We appreciate you doing this. Yep. And want to say thank you to everyone that watched this episode of Minot Matters here at the Dakotan. Be sure to like and subscribe, become part of the Dakotan community. We appreciate you. Thanks for watching this video. Have a great rest of your day.